So case studies I could talk about all day long, and I wouldn't even say I have favourites, because all my clients are successful, all of them. Some more so than others, and I guess it would be foolish not to talk about the more successful ones. But every single client I ever work with is successful. Again, to what level, that all varies. I would say so many. Let's choose Miles. So Miles came to me in 2000 and it was 21. I still had my driving business at this point. I was in a coaching group. Let's start again. So Miles came to me in Case studies. There's so many case studies that I could mention, and I probably don't have many favourites, to be honest with you. I think all my clients are successful. And for the very simple reason that they are just copying me. So everything I teach is what I've done in my own business and what I've learned from my clients over the last 10 years. So you could argue it's bulletproof. It is literally bulletproof. But if I give you one example, this is a good one. So a plumbing and heating engineer came to me probably around about 2021, 22. He was actually in rehab when he came to me, and he wasn't even a plumbing and heating engineer at this point. He was doing sort of odd plumbing jobs. He was in rehab, we had a conversation, and I really wanted to help this guy. However, I had another plumber in his area, and I have this thing where I don't work with two plumbers in the same area. So I said to him, listen, I really want to speak to you and work with you, but I need to go and speak with this other guy to make sure he's okay with that. And I normally wouldn't do that, but I really wanted to work with this guy. I really wanted to help him. Again, going back to the reason why I do business coaching, I just love helping people. So anyway, I called up this other plumber and said, listen, this guy, blah, blah, blah. I told him the story, and he said, yeah, fine, just work with him. So that was great news. Phoned him back, and we started working together. Now, fast forward, it wasn't a quick process. Some of these processes can be done in 3 months, 6 months. This one I would say was about 15, 16 months, and he's a £1 million company. He's doing well over £1 million. He's just bought his first property. He's just started his first property company. He goes on holiday 4 or 5 times a year, and I mean, to have that impact on not only an individual but a family. Now you should see their house. They bought this house, I think it's ex-council, and they've ripped the whole thing apart. Big open plan, sort of living. So it's an old kind of house, so you can imagine they've got fairly big rooms. They've ripped the whole thing. It's full open plan. They've landscaped the whole garden, new kitchens, bathrooms, you name it, and the house is just stunning. And as a business coach, like, I mean, yeah, that probably is my favourite story, to be honest with you. Another case study would be one of my landscaping clients. In fact, I've got 2 landscaping clients who are pretty close to each other, so they could actually both be, and they're pretty much identical in what they do. So Miles and Adam. Adam came to me, nice guy, fucking brilliant at his job, hopeless at business. Like, he's dyslexic, which didn't help, but great guy, great at his job, just hopeless at business. Now I remember this because Adam still holds the trade coach record, right? And what I used to do, I don't do it as much anymore, but I used to ask people, what's your take home pay? And in Adam's case, he was taking home the minimum, which I think was £1,050 a month or whatever it was back then. I said, yeah, fair enough, tax purposes, I get it. How much dividend are you getting at the end of the year? 0. I said, okay. I said, how many hours are you working? And I think it was like 8 to 90 hours, whatever. It was pretty much 6-7 days a week, 12-hour shifts. When we broke down his 12.5 grand take home by the hours that he works, he was working for like £4.50 an hour. So here's a landscaper, one of the best in the UK, I'm sure he's got over 1 million followers on TikTok, and he's making like £4.50 an hour. So there's a huge job to do, but if I'm being honest, when it's that bad, my job is easy. It's easy. And within 3 months he was off the tools completely. Within, I would say 8 to 12 months he was doing over £1 million. And within 12 to 18 months he had 3 teams, full office staff, project manager, office manager, and so on. And I think, we don't work together anymore, he doesn't need me anymore, but I think he must be approaching 3 million now. Miles was actually in the same coaching group that I was in, and I still had the business at this point. And he came to me. I remember I was actually here in Dubai when he came to me, and I was on holiday. Obviously, I wasn't living here at that point, and he was almost in tears. He had invested a lot of money into business coaching. He was in the group that I was in, which I had previously left, but he was also paying a lot of additional stuff. Not entirely sure what he was paying for, but long story short, he had no money. He had 2 guys working for him, and he had 2 weeks' work left in the book. A very quick story actually on that. I love this story actually. He said to me, I said, Miles, we'll get you to 10 grand a month, no problem. That is bread and butter for me. And he said to me, Darren, if you can get me to 10 grand a month, I will buy you anything you want. Right? I said, I don't need anything. He said, no, I'll get you anything you want. I'll get you anything you want. I said, I tell you what. I was on the phone. I said, get me a bottle of champagne. Me and Claire love champagne. I said, get me a bottle of champagne. And he went, right, I will do. I said, make it, and I joked, I said, make it Dom Perignon. And I was so quick to turn around. It was definitely less than 6 months, and it was well over 10k a month profit. And I was still working in the driveway currently at this point, and I'd been in the office to speak to my management team about something, I'm not sure what. And Claire happened to be there as well, and we drove home together, and we were about to pull into our driveway, and who was on the driveway? I drove all the way up from Leicester in his brand new Ranger Wild Track with a case of Dom Perignon, was Miles. Again, fast forward to today, I still work with Miles. Does he need me? Yeah, he probably still does actually. Does he really need me? No, probably not. I think the reason why Miles still has me is for what he pays me versus what he earns, it's a drop in the ocean. It's like, it's not even worth thinking about. And there is still times to this day where we will have a one-to-one meeting, and there's a mic drop, there's the penny drops, there's a light bulb moment, and it's like, wow. And when you get to that level, doing sort of £2-3 million turnover, the slightest increment in your business turnover, profit, efficiency, processes, systems, patterns, whatever, can make a massive difference. So if we put in a system, for example, a new system, it could save Miles or one of his team, more likely one of his team, 4 or 5 hours, which means they can then be allocated another section of the business to go and work on. Now that's much more down the line for most trade businesses, but yeah, that was a good case study. Miles is an exceptional young man. He's also now a property developer, and I think just under or just over £1 million worth of property he now owns, and his plan is to take that to 10 million. Do I think he'll get to 10 million? 100%. Another client would be Max. Let's talk about Max. So Max came to me, it was just him, and I think he had 1 or 2 guys working for him. He was a plasterer, and nothing in place, no systems. In fact, I'm not even sure he knew what a system was. No system, no processes, just Max and his guys. Work coming in via mainly word of mouth, I think, and him running about daft, doing everything. Now, I actually had a conversation with Max less than a week ago, and he was back on the tools. Now, this doesn't bode well for what we do here at Trade Coach, but it just so happens 2 people have let him down really badly, and he had to go on the tools for this really important job, which I think could lead to more jobs, and I think that was the main reason for it. But prior to last week, Max has now got a full office staff in place, he's completely off the tools, he's got 2/3 teams, and his plan is to basically take this to well over £1 million and implement even more systems throughout the business.